excited to be here to do
My
this.
name is Laura Foster.
Guitar player extraordinaire slash resident fun guy at Northside Baptist.
Trio Quinn. I'm actually Charlie's cousin.
Neil Baker.
Eddie Baines Blanton. I'm a junior at Lowndes High School.
Peterson. I'm a student at Lowndes High School.
Alright, welcome back to the Young Minds Podcast. I'm so happy to have Jeff on today, and what we're going to do is a little something different. He is going to interview me. I know that you're probably thinking, what in the world is going on? Because I've been at this for 80 plus episodes interviewing people, but now we're going to flip the script on you, and now Jeff is going to interview me, and so I get to tell my story, and you get to hear it.
Yeah, so. and don't worry, Charlie is not being replaced.
No.
This is his thing, and I'm just so honored to be here today, just to talk with him, to get him to share his story with you. I don't know if he's ever really shared your full story in detail.
Not on this podcast, no.
Right? So it's cool. I think it's really really great story. Of course, all of God's stories are great stories.
Right.
Yeah, so He's so good to us. But
right.
So this month is your 2-year anniversary of your salvation.
Yes, when this episode comes out, it'll be on the day.
On the day.
So I made sure, I was like, because even though I think it's like a Wednesday it falls, like on special days like this, I was like, you know what, we'll release it early, we'll put it on a Wednesday instead of Friday. That's just like so cool that I can do that, because I've got so many episodes in the bank, like about 9 of them, just ready to go, right? Rapid fire, just ready to go.
That's great.
Yeah.
So would you mind sharing your story, how you came to Christ?
Sure. So, I usually, like a lot of people, they don't go back to when they were born. But for my case, I kind of have to, because when I was born, I had all these so many medical problems. Like, when I was born, I was 3 months premature, 2 pounds, 13 ounces. I could fit in the palm of your hand. Like, you cuff your hand like that, and I could fit in it. And, for my mom, she was nervous. Of course, why wouldn't you be? That is your first kid. She was already, she had me later in life, so there was also like, what could that come from? Like, what could come from that, whatever, whatnot. And, so we were so, she was so worried about that. Well, then I, come to find out that, after all these medical things were going on and everything like that, God really showed that He was there. Because, one thing that was so strange was they were telling, my mom, or one thing they told her was, and again, I'm not mad at them for this, because they were doing their job. They were looking at the numbers and everything, and, they were like, well, if he has to go back on the ventilator, you might as well think about cutting the cord. My mom was like, no, we're not doing that. We're taking him home. That's not going to happen. And also, too, my dad, and I just recently figured this out when I interviewed Mom, she said that Dad had a dream, and I think that was God telling him, hey, he's going to be all right. And that was so cool. I'm like, why have I not heard this before?
That's cool.
But that was a really cool moment. And one thing that they told my mom was, it's so strange. I'm looking at these charts, and they're these numbers, and looking at him, they don't correlate. It's like they swap my numbers out with another kid or something like that. But I had really bad brain bleeds, and it was really severe, on both sides. I don't know the whole technical mumbo jumbo about it, but. And so that was cause for concern, what is that going to do with my nerves, things like that. Well, all it did was, and praise God for this, I've only got mild cerebral palsy, which I can still drive, I can still walk, talk, whatever. And another thing that's so cool for me is they didn't know I was going to be able to, speak verbally like this. Well, look at that. I didn't know I was going to have a voice, but God's using it every single week to put out a podcast episode somewhere.
That's cool.
And I know, it's been a crazy road with the whole hospital stuff, but for now, I'm all right. I'm good, and that's, the medical side of things. But then, you would think after that, you would think we get plugged into church because thank you God, right? But I think we just got so caught up in life, and my mom was not. She was still so nervous about bringing me home, and just me growing up, because, what else could happen, right? And so we just kind of got caught up in life, and it wasn't until 2022 when I met Stephen and Peterson and Baines Blanton. They, just amazed me at how open they were about their faith. I was like, and I think a relationship with Jesus is something that I've always looked for. I didn't know I was looking for it, but I think it was something always there. And it just amazed me how much they were so open about it, because kids these days, you don't really hear it all that much. And So, they took me to FCA, and that was one of the first things that, kind of got me going. And then bands invited me, I think it was to the Good Friday service. And then, so really, you think about it, I was not, it wasn't that long before I got saved and baptized, because on Easter I got saved, and then a week later baptized by Randy. And then, come to find out, Randy, I was the first person he baptized here, and I was like, that's so cool to me too. It's like a little thing.
Yeah.
But we have that relationship because of that, and I cherish that so much. And then I've been serving at Northside and doing my thing ever since, the podcast and all that. So
that's so good. So you were on up in teenage years, of course. When you're a senior now, so a couple years ago, you were 10th grade.
Yep.
And gave your life to Christ. Tell me what changed in your life. What do you sense? What do you feel? What do you see? Your motives in life, like all of that. What's changed since you've come to Christ?
Well, definitely too. One thing I've noticed. I mean, it's not like extreme, but also there's a bit of like I'm a bit more emotional to certain things, like because your heart gets softened and you're like,
that's good.
and it's like say if like we're, I'll give you an example, like if there's like a really powerful song or whatever in the choir and we're singing it, ooh,
that's good.
That can get you,
Yeah.
So, and that I'll talk about more of that later, but that experience being in that choir and you leading has been amazing.
Wow,
to
praise
be
the
in.
Lord.
But another that would be that too, and also, also too for me, I know even before I was saved, I'm not a perfect person, but now that really makes you realize how much you need God. It really makes you go, see all the stuff you were doing, and you need God to help you. Like,
yeah,
it really makes you realize, and that was like a turning point for me. Like, especially in, you say 10th grade, it makes me think, man, it's been since 10th grade. Like, it makes me. I thought it was like for some reason like not as far into my high school like career as it has been, but that's crazy to think, But yeah, I was definitely changed. Also too with certain family members too, we've been able to talk more. Like I've got a family member in Honduras right now. He's serving as a missionary, and sure we were close when he came here, but even more so now because of that. We have that common ground of sharing our faith, and also to like what ministry ideas we're having. Like I've kind of said that we're kind of a team. Like I serve here, do stuff in the States, and he's off doing missionary work in other places. And it's so cool to he give updates from him, and he's been on here before. What a blessing he's been to me also, just to be that example of what not just a godly man should look like, but what it's like to go on mission like he is. Because he's been going for about he's going to be down there for, it's been a while now, but he's going to be down for a year learning Spanish with the Baptist Dental Ministry, and he knows about 90% of it now. I'm like, go Daughtry, go, And I'm hoping that one day you get to meet him. I'll put him up in the choir.
Yeah, like, sing in Spanish.
Oh, I want to see that happen. Yeah, for sure.
That's so good. So tell me about your time at Northside. You talked about your friends, Baines, and those guys. Well, what else? What else about Northside? The choir, you mentioned that. Yeah. What about student ministry?
Yes. Student ministry, because I remember student ministry is what kind of it. There's half of the episodes wouldn't exist if it wasn't for me going to Wednesday night for student ministry, and the reason why I say that is because Drew Faircloth, he invited me to go, and I wasn't against it. I was just like busy, but we made the time to go. I know me and my mom, we said we're only going to go a few times. That didn't happen. Now we go on everything, and that happened with everything that we've like joined since then. We've said, okay, we'll start out and go a few times and see. No, we went every single time. But when it comes to Wednesday nights, and I don't do it as much anymore. I've kind of planned it better because I've gotten better at doing like scheduling and things. I would, and I feel so bad about this now, but Landon knows I would do it and he didn't mind, but I would sneak out in the middle of the sermon and because I would schedule interviews like with people that were throughout the church, like say like Miss Laura or whatever. I would have to go and meet up with her and everything, and so if it wasn't for student ministry, half the episodes were that, and Drew, God working through Drew, half the episodes wouldn't exist.
Really?
And that's crazy to think, and because now, look where it's gone with the 1 year and everything, and all that. But also too, just like D-Nows and things, they've absolutely amazed me, because they kind of took me out of my comfort zone a little bit, even though I was at my own house. Like, I'm, believe it or not, like, it depends on where I'm at, but I'm a bit of an introvert, but like, here I'm an extrovert. Like, I'll talk to people, whatever, but you know, it just, so that kind of took me out of my comfort zone a little bit, you know, if we're in small groups or like, you know, and like you're being vulnerable with people.
Yeah.
That's what really takes you, you know, and also just my time at Northside, of course, you know, this past summer, that was an absolute blast. And I've not stopped talking about it, because there's so many, you know, funny memories that I have. Like, I know that, I don't know if you even remember this, but I've got a pretty sharp memory when it comes to small stuff like this. It's like, do you remember when you told me that you're like, you're a pretty quiet man? It's like, I thought that was the funniest thing because, like, no one's ever told me that. But it's like, because I was like trying to, like, I guess, I don't know, like analyze you guys' personalities or whatever, and like figure things out. And I was like, don't say nothing weird before, like, you know, you get. And
I've been right there before. Same thing. Oh, please don't say anything weird, just weird and dumb.
Right. Yeah. And you know, so you know, there's also really funny moments like that, but also just to get to serve and see how you guys work.
Yeah.
Every day for 2 months was like such a pleasure, because I mean, not everybody gets to see that, you know, and then to take that back and tell people about it, you know, and so they understand. It's like, you don't understand, people, they're always working up here, so like almost 24/7, like, you know, I mean, they're going, you know, like you say, ministry's the win, and you make sure it's the win. Like, I was, you know, really mind blown by everything, especially with, and even some of the manual labor stuff we did over the summer, like the cleaning the upstairs for the new youth wing and all that. I enjoyed that too. I was like, you know what? If it was for anywhere else, I probably wouldn't have. But you know, I'm enjoying it right now. Yeah. Like, and we went and served the Bridgemen, you know, for the band camp, and that might have been the longest day that I served. But you know what? It was the funnest one.
That's cool.
It was like a 12-hour day, but we got it done.
That's cool. Man, we were so glad you came and served as an intern here.
That I enjoyed that so much, you know, and also too, and I've talked about this, to get to know you guys personally, not as just, hey, there's the worship pastor, or, you know, hey, there's the pianist, right, you know, because, I mean, that's how some people, you know, they don't get to know you guys as well, and I'm so thankful that I do, because, like, I mean, I wouldn't, you know, because now, like, you guys are my circle, and so I text you all the time.
That's right.
You know, and I enjoy it so much.
Yeah,
like,
we just people, man.
Well, and that's what, you know, it was so nice to, you know, see, because I mean, people don't always think, well, you know, they're held to this standard because they have to do this every Sunday or whatever. Well, you got to realize there's people behind those positions.
Yeah, we need the Lord just as much as everybody else. Yes, we do. We're so grateful and thankful. You did a great job as an intern. I know I've told you before, but man, you were just a gift to us this summer, and such a good worker, hard worker. You love the Lord. You're just a man of character. You're faithful. You're always on time. You're always doing more than you were asked. Great job. Great job. So let's talk about your podcast, Young Minds. Yeah. How did you come up with the Young Minds podcast? How did you come up with the name?
The name?
Yeah.
So,
because it's catchy. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah.
I thought it was just really clever. So go ahead.
I think it might have been, you know, it's been a while. So I think it might have been because what started this whole podcast thing was I went on somebody else's. It was called Of Sound Mind Feed, right? And so I think that's where I pulled that from. It's like the mind part. And I was like, well, I'm a young guy. I want to touch the young minds. So, young minds right there. Bam. And I think also, too, what the name does, I like it better because like, I'm not saying that you don't need to have like something biblical in your name, but it draws more people because they're like, what's the young minds? Like, it could be anything, right? It's about young people. And so they, you know, they go to listen and like, oh, people's stories is really inspirational, you know, so it draws all types of people in. You don't know who's listening, right? Yeah. Whereas, like, if you had a biblical title already in your name, they're like, oh, it's something, you know, but you're bringing maybe non-believers in. And I don't know that, but, you know, what if that is the case? So that's how the name came about, as far as I know.
Well, I tell you, it really, it has a confidence to it. It's this almost carrying your torch. You know what I mean? It's like you're doing your part. It's like we're going to own our faith. We're going to go ahead and be influencers. We're going to be positive. We're going to the lion on your shirt. You know, just that. I don't know what the lion as far as that.
I just was like, you know what, lions are cool, and they you know, but I just felt like that fit cool. With, you know, because I'd seen examples and all that, and like with Of Sound Mind, his podcast, like he had a line too, and I was like, well. So that was kind of me, not really coughing it, but it just looked so cool. It was like, and then, you know, that same guy, Cody Truitt, he, you know, because I made the first logo, it was like, I won't lie, it was bad. Like, it was, you know, it was not great. It was like a lion with like a little like cross in the center or like whatever, like kind of faded in with one of the, but it worked. You know, it had text on it. And then he made me another logo, and it blew me away. And then he made the current one. So all these logos, I've only made one of them out of the three. But the current one, we have on T-shirts now and everything like that. That's still mind blowing to me too with the T-shirt thing. It's another one of those things. I didn't expect the podcast to blow up like it has, right? Well, I didn't expect the T-shirts to go like they have been. I mean, they've been going crazy. It's like I know that when I interviewed Austin Williams, he told me, he said, "Man, about 6 people when I was here told me I need to contact you about getting on the podcast, and I saw your shirts everywhere." I'm like, well, good. That's great, But they wear it with pride, and it's not just people here either. It's people at Lounge, and I don't even know, those kids may not even be remotely Christian, but they're wearing the verses on the back, and that's so they may read them and they may go in and see what it means,
Well, it has this idea of, hey, we're really thinking about our faith. This is really something that is intentional. We've really thought about these things. We believe. And it's not a blind faith. It's not an empty faith. There's facts here. We know that the Bible is the most accurate book in all of human history. And just by measure, the number of manuscripts, the distance between manuscripts, the accuracy between manuscripts that we have, it's not even close to other books. It's it's just so much more reliable. And that kind of young minds that, I forget the brother that years ago, let my people think. And I'm sorry for all you listening who may know who that was. I can't recall it right now. But it's that idea of, hey, this is a real thing. The resurrection of Jesus Christ is real. It is a historical fact. Not just something we've made up. And that young minds communicates that. I think it's great. The bold as the lion. I didn't know if that's what you meant, but that's so good.
And my mom, she said that there was an older gentleman. she had her shirt on in a Walmart, and he read the verse on the back and was like, I needed that. And I was like, I love hearing stories like that, because I'm like, well, look at that. God's working through this shirt, not just through the podcast too,
That's right.
And that's so cool. And not to mention, shout out to Ing and Cotton that's right down the road. They're amazing at what they do, and those are the ones that made the shirts.
They look good.
Yeah, they're really high quality, and they don't. For what they charge, please don't charge more after listening to this, but I'm saying that for what they charge, I think they should, they're so good.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. No, I'm sure they're glad to do it. So thankful for them. So you said, if I understand correctly, you said it's a 1-year anniversary or close to the 1-year anniversary of you beginning your podcast.
Or it's, so the 1 year is already passed. But then, so 2 years is going to be in November, but then this is the 2-year salvation.
Yes, in April.
Yeah,
but I mean your podcast,
right?
So you're a little past 1 year. November will be 2 years.
Yep,
that's great.
Yeah.
And do you remember your first podcast?
My first one was. I remember how I did it. I didn't have the mic or anything, so I just had my phone, had my earbuds in, and I literally just I didn't even have my desk that I have in my room now. Because on the right I have my nonprofit stuff. On the left side is podcast stuff. It's not that organized on top though, but But I remember that my first one, I brought a chair from the dining room table into my room, and it's like this big old chair. And then I've got my earbuds in, got my podcast mic, or just this hooked up, and I put my phone on my dresser and I just talked for about 15 minutes, stuttered over my words, didn't know what I was doing, and then posted it. Bam, first one done. And then, just started going, and I was kind of trying to format it like the ones I'd had an example of, like Donovan Jones. He does more just, he does more like teaching of the Bible, right, and rather than interviewing people. And I tried to do that, but I realized I was like, this is just, it's just not my thing. I felt like it wasn't.
That's good.
And so then, I started interviewing people. I think I interviewed Eli Willis, and then Donovan, I interviewed him, as well as Mikey. And then where it started to kick off, really, or I got the idea for interviewing people, like people here, was Pastor Avi's. Because that 1 year anniversary was, it has been ingrained into the podcast for as long as I can remember. Because he said, right after we got done, he said, why don't we do one with all the main pastors? And I was like, huh? And then as we were coming up on the anniversary, I said, and then he said, why don't we do it live? And I was like, okay, sure, let's do it. And so this has been a really big thought.
And I remember that. I remember that was great. Yeah, it's so good. So as you move forward with podcasting, do you continue to do podcasting, expand it? Like what do you have any anything maybe God's given you to do? I mean, you don't have to change anything, but just kind of curious.
So I've, of course I'm going to keep doing it, but I'd like to, I don't know, maybe, because right now it's just a hobby, it would be nice to make some money off of it. It's not the main idea, but, it would be nice just to, make something off of it because of, the resources I put in, like if I go somewhere to meet the person or, so like the equipment that I put into it or whatever, you want to invest that back into it. But right now it's, that's also been a thought, and also too, like maybe bringing more people on. Now I would be very choosy about that, because I've been running about this for almost 2 years now, and I'm like, I might bring you on, but I gotta hold on now. Like I might have to do a background check or something before, But I've thought about maybe doing, having some of the youth do segments that still go to Lowndes and Valdosta. Like at the end of certain episodes, every month or so, they can tell people how God's working in Lowndes and Valdosta. Because I won't be there, right? Because I'll be graduated, but we'll still hear how God's working in our youth. That way, but through another voice besides mine. Because you know what? You've heard me for 80 episodes. You might want to hear somebody else.
Sure.
So there's also that. But as right now, we're kind of continuing the same direction. I mean, it'd be nice to... I know that right now I'm trying to work with... Actually, a teacher of mine. He's very supportive of me. He said that he knew, like, this big PGA... Like, he worked for the PGA Tour, like this golfer. And I was like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Let's get that, hooked up. And so... There's been more opportunities to do that. Also, I've gone around to different churches and interviewed people. Believe it or not, there's about two other Pastor Robbies on my radar. Like,
how about that?
I'm like, or actually 3 more. I'm like, what is it with Pastor Robbies around Georgia, like Valdosta, Georgia? What's going on? But yeah.
All right, so it's a hypothetical, right? No pressure here. If you had your dream, if you had your maybe 1 or 2 people, and you asked this question to me earlier, it can be living or passed away, or who would you interview? In other words, living today or living in an earlier life.
So one of your favorites, Phil Wickham, for sure. I would that would just because I've watched some of his story like on other podcasts, and so I'm like, man, that man he almost lost his voice, But just to think what God's done through him and what he's doing now, like I'm going to actually go see him in the summer. I'm so excited for that. I'm so ready for it.
Man.
And then another one would be Greg Laurie, to hear kind of his story about like with, because the Jesus Revolution film came out, like what it was like to live through that time, and experience that, because we all want to experience it again. But what was it like to experience it right then? And I think there's little nuggets of that, like still happening. Like UGA just had like mass baptisms in the back of pickup trucks. Like there's God's still working on our campuses.
Yes,
you just got to find it. But that would probably be the 2. There's probably more. I didn't want to give the stereotypical answer. Like, oh yeah, like Jesus. Like I didn't want to just
Yeah.
But there's probably way more. Probably honestly, and I can't name specific ones right now, but probably some just like. Pastor family members, like what experiences did you have, like when you were living, or like how did God work through you when you were still alive? Like it would be cool to do.
Sure.
Because they're probably thinking like, what is a podcast? Like what are you doing? Like but that'd be
That's great. Thanks for answering that. So, what about, you have any other plans for the future? Education, training, ministry,
so
anything like that?
I've kind of thought of. Of course, it's gone through my head. I'm kind of just taking one day at a time. I probably should. I'm going to start doing more research on like probably more technical schools rather than like a big college, because I know I'm going to stay here, and I kind of know what I want to do. Like I'd rather just go in and like start doing something. So probably I'm like between Wiregrass and GMC, like to maybe do graphic design, things like that, because I love doing that. Especially when you can put Jesus into creating something, which is I love creating stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my jam. Like and sure, like, is it sometimes frustrating? Oh yeah, like sometimes it is, But like right now I'm taking an intro class for the graphic stuff, and thanks to being up here and interning, I was ahead. Like, with how they use because they use Apple Macs there for that program, and they use the same programs. I was like, well, look at that. I'm and I've got a 99 in the class right now. Like, hey, so.
Looks like it's going that way then. Good.
Yeah.
Good. And you want to use your gift for the Lord. You want to continue like you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Whether it's vocationally serving full time in ministry, or bivocationally part time, or avocationally, or whatever the other word is. I don't know the other word, but I think that's the word.
Yeah.
But not, as a volunteer. You want to continue to serve the Lord and do that. That's so good. That's really good.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, look, to say that I'm excited and encouraged to see what God's doing in your life would really be an understatement. It's just amazing to see just the peace, the freedom you walk in. Your heart is free. It's like we talked about last night in our worship ministry fellowship. We're just desperate people who understand what it means to be forgiven, and you can see that where you walking with the Lord, man. It's so good. It's so good. You're doing such a great job. Way to go with your podcast, and thank you for taking time to share your story and let this inexperienced interviewer interview you.
Oh, come on.
And,
I think you did pretty good.
Well, thanks,
me.
man. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
Thanks so much, and excited for the stuff to come.
Of course. And again, I thank you so much for doing this, because I know that you're a busy guy, but I'm so glad that we got the chance to sit down and do this. So, and I can't wait to see what God does with this episode. With another episode of the Young Minds Podcast coming to a close, I just want to remind you that you are never alone and faith is action. So let's get out there.